Thank you. That was great. It's so nice seeing our music team together. And thank you, music team, for going in to record the songs for today. We all appreciate that, and it's really uplifting. So, welcome again. Today, we're concluding our series on revolutionary love based on the book See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love by Valarie Kaur. I know some of this material was difficult to absorb, but we all know that in order for something to be healed, it needs to be brought to the surface, looked at, and dealt with. That process can be difficult. It's not looking at the deep seated biases that exist within ourselves and within humankind. At the same time, the author inspires a reason, a determination, and a commitment to action and change, first within ourselves and then in the wider circle of the world. The author offers a path to transformation built on the solid spiritual foundation of her call of revolutionary love, as well as her 10 practices that provide an integrated psycho-spiritual social approach, along with practical applications of spiritual principles, specifically love in action. And these are learning to love others and strangers by being willing to wonder about them, to grieve with them, and fight for justice with and for them. Learning to love our opponents and perceived enemies by tending to our own wounds and healing them first. Then we open our heart mind listening ability to listen to our opponent's stories, wounds, and perspective. And then we reimagine and co create a new world grounded in equality and justice for all. And finally, learning to love ourselves through mindful breathing that creates lives of balance. And these include self care, community connections and support, and joy. And it's alternated with pushing by, going even deeper into our own healing and evolution, and then transitioning as we birth a new reality. We birth new evolved identities and realities for ourselves and for the world. And then finally, Kaur closes her book and with the epilogue and 10th practice, which is do it all through joy, through and with joy. So this morning, we're going to put our attentions on the practices of pushing and transitioning, and then learning to love ourselves, and then we'll close with joy. In the last installment of this series, I shared Kaur's journey of learning to love herself by practicing the lifestyle of mindful breathing that she learned through her deep connections with the Oak Creek Sikh community, who had come together to wonder, grieve, and fight, rage, listen, and reimagine the future, while they continued to breathe, push, and transition together to change hearts, minds, and policies. She described learning to live in the moment, moving from moment with a capital M to moment with a capital M, in a state of joyfulness, even within the struggle. Because when we labor in love, labor is not only a means, but an end in itself. She begins chapter 8, Push, with this statement. When I was finally ready to love myself, I had to learn how to breathe and push through my grief, rage, and trauma. On the other side, I found what seemed to be utterly impossible before: healing, forgiveness, and even reconciliation. One of the things that's constantly emphasized in all my training as a minister and throughout my unity training is the importance of self-care. And this is what she's speaking of. This is not about self-indulgence. This is about self-preservation. She writes, every time I felt a surge of guilt, I remembered my mother's instruction to allow myself the pleasures I wanted for everyone on the earth. My gratitude returned to me that present moment. And that's because we cannot give what we don't have. We cannot give if we are not healed. We cannot serve if we're depleted. In order to love the world, we have to love ourselves. And that's what it means by pushing through. Healing is a long journey. It's a kind of labor that requires breathing and pushing, resting, and then going deeper, and being willing to notice and accept all the sensations that we feel, including pain and discomfort. Now, I know along my healing path, there's been respites. And then it was time to push and breathe again. And then there was a respite. And healing is not necessary to end suffering, but it is the ability and freedom to return to our true selves again and again. And by doing that, we can share that with one another. Returning home, feeling rest and joy in her body, Kaur was determined to sustain these feelings even when she picked up her work again and labor again. She would learn from her close friend, Joyce, how to find and create joy in her everyday life. Little things like baking and gardening and biking and dancing. And when the world grew dark, how to find comfort and healing in the love of family and friends. She would learn from her mother the transformative power of forgiveness. As she watched her mother take care of her grandmother, her mother's mother-in-law, who had always been so very cruel to her mother. After her grandmother died, Kaur asked her mother, "How did you do it? How did you forgive her?" And she said, "With time. It doesn't happen instantly." And then with tears in her eyes, she added, "Forgiveness is for you, not for the person who hurt you. For you, not them. For you." It's easy to love people who love you back, her mother said. But when someone gives you pain, how do you love that person? That's the real test of love. So Kaur emphasizes that forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is freedom from hate. And after watching her mother forgive her grandmother, Kaur felt a new desire to let go of any animosity that she was still holding. She said, "Forgiveness is it's the end of a long internal healing process." And she said it finally felt like a gift to herself. So she began to forgive her cousin, the cousin that had molested her and then later on pulled a gun on her, threatened her life, threatened her husband's life. She realized that forgiveness can open us up to previously unimaginable possibilities of reconciliation. And then, after that realization, out of the blue, her cousin called her to invite her to his wedding. 10 years had passed since the assault with the gun, and he was reaching out for reconciliation. She wrote, "Reconciliation rests on accountability. It requires perpetrators to accept full responsibility for their actions." She adds, "Reconciliation amends what has been torn asunder, but it does not return us to a point before the harm happened." And that's because the healing has taken place through forgiveness. And that makes reconciliation possible. Both she and her cousin acknowledged that even after his apology, she did not owe him a relationship. But she ultimately decided to attend his wedding. And while it was even more difficult than she imagined, she was finally able to exhale. There was a healing within the entire family. She says the labor of reconciliation is complicated, unpredictable, and painful. She said, "Somehow, led by the deepest wisdom within us, we both pushed together to the other side and transitioned our family into a new place, broken and whole, wounded and healed, which is, I think, the best shape for a family to be in. She asked herself, what would it mean for us to love ourselves as a people, to push as a nation? And to her own question, she responds, to promise the non-repetition of harm would require nothing less than transitioning the nation as a whole. It would mean retiring the old narrative and embracing a new narrative of a nation longing to be born, a nation that is multiracial, multi-faith, multi-gendered, multicultural, a nation where power is shared and we strive to protect the wellness and dignity of every person and work to save our earth and our collective future. Transition is her ninth practice, and it gets its name from the final stage of birthing, of giving birth. She says, which is the most dangerous and the most painful. She said, transition feels like dying, but it is the stage that precedes the birth of new life. It is also the point at which there is only one way out, and that is to go through it, to push through to the end. She said it's an imperfect metaphor. There is no one point when a new society is born, but she compares it to the most difficult, fiery moments in our lives, saying, in all of our various creative labors, making a living, raising a family, building a nation, there are moments that are so painful we want to give up. But inside this pain and encroaching numbness, we might also find the depths of courage, hear our deeper wisdom, and transition to the other side. One of the greatest barriers to successful transition is that inner voice within us that says, I can't. We call it the inner critic. The inner critic that tells us we're not good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, not educated enough. You know what I'm talking about. I don't think anyone escapes it, though it may certainly be louder or quieter for other people, for some people, depending on their culture, their family, their personal histories. I know it was really loud for me at one point for most of my life. But she shares again and models her own journey of healing and evolving into spiritual maturity. And she describes her process of dislodging the critic, dislodging it from the driver's seat of her mind, and replacing it with that other inner voice that we all have. We can call it our Christ self, our higher self, spirit, inner wisdom. But it's that voice that tenderly reveals truth, wisdom, compassion, fearlessness, and guides us moment by moment when we get quiet enough to listen. A few months later, Kaur continued to push and breathe, and she founded the Revolutionary Love Project. In the midst of what appeared to be very dark times, she said, I concluded that revolutionary love was the call of our times and started building the tools to practice it. You know, I don't think any of us imagined how dark it could get. We're reminded once again the past couple of weeks with the multiple shootings. But like Kaur, our faith teaches us that life is ever expanding, ever unfolding. And we're all part of an upward progressive movement of love, birthing a new way of being in the world, birthing a new way of being, period, and then extending that to the world. She says, if we take a linear view of history, then we are sliding backwards. But if we see the story of our nation as one of long labor, then we have a different view. Progress during birthing labor is cyclical, not linear. It's a series of expansions and contractions, and each turns through the cycle. And each turn through the cycle brings us closer to what is being born. So we can say that what we've seen is just part of that cyclical process that's coming to the surface to be healed so that we can push through this labor and birth a new world. She says, no matter how hopeful or hopeless we feel, we can choose to return to the labor anyway. Because when we labor for love, love is not only a means, but an end. In the conclusion of the book, Kaur leaves us with one more essential practice: joy. We know that joy is our natural state. But living in the world that is sometimes tattered, torn, and in chaos, joy seems to slip away, and we're affected by what's going on around us in the world. But even in that, we go back to ourselves, to our roots, to who we are, to the truth of who we are. And love and joy are synonymous. She says, joy returns us to everything that is good and beautiful and worth fighting for. In joy, we see even darkness with new eyes. I was not alone. I was one in millions. I was part of a movement, one in a constellation. I had to shine my light in my specific slice of the sky, and I know I could do that. In her epilogue, she shares that just as she began writing this book, her good friend, body worker, and healer, Joyce, was dying of cancer. Kaur and her mother took care of Joyce through her last days. And after loving and preparing her, they accompanied her to the crematorium where she was burned in the Sikh tradition. And so I'm going to close with her words and a reminder. She says, joy is possible even amid great labors, the labor of dying and birthing, and the labors between. We cannot force it. But when we create moments to breathe labor between labor pains and surrender our senses to the present moment, take the time to notice the colors, the light, the feeling of being alive, here and together, joy comes more easily. It is a felt sense in our bodies. In the face of the horrors visited upon our worlds daily, in the struggle to protect our loved ones, choosing to let in joy is a revolutionary act. Joy is the 10th practice of revolutionary love, the core practice that sustains all the other practices. Joy is a gift of love. We will be someone's ancestors one day. If we do this right, they will not inherit our fear. They will inherit our bravery, born of joy. We can do this. Each one of us can leave a legacy of love and joy in the midst of the labor and as being agents of revolutionary love. I hope this journey into seeing no stranger has been as meaningful for you as it has been for me. It's a wonderful book, and I felt in my soul, every experience that she shared, and every breakthrough that she shared, and the progress that she made. And I know that I will personally continue to practice revolutionary love. And if you're interested in learning more about her work, you can visit revolutionaryloveproject.com, and I will put that in the chat box later on in our service. So now I'd like to invite you to get comfortable in your seat as we move into meditation. I invite you to close your eyes and move within. And just allow yourselves to breathe comfortably. And as you feel your breathing slow down, you feel yourself relaxing more and more. You feel all the stress and strains that are held in your body. You feel them leave with each breath, with each exhalation. And as you continue to breathe at your own pace, you breathe in love and you breathe out fear. You breathe in comfort and you breathe out stress. You breathe in the awareness that love is your true identity and joy is a byproduct of that love. And you acknowledge, I am filled with wonder and amazement. And I behold the divinity in every person. I behold the divinity in all situations and in each and every moment. I live in the knowledge that there is only one, and each of us is born from that one. I see no stranger, only part of myself, blessed with the ability to love. I see no stranger, only a reflection of God expressed in each individual. I see the embodiment of love in each person as well as myself. And I know I am an agent of revolutionary love because I am love. I rise above earthly elements and push through any difficulty I may meet as I allow my love to create a new reality. Love is truth. Love is the only reality. Love is who I am. And now I allow myself to go deeper and deeper into the silence. And I just listen. And now I invite you to bring to mind anyone who may be in need of prayer. We extend this to our unity prayer list, to silent unity, and we extend it to all of humanity. We affirm that there is a power and a presence within them that will see them through any difficulty that they are experiencing on any level. And we know that they are being guided and directed throughout their lives. We hold in prayer our world leaders, and we pray for the healing of our collective mind so that we may know and live from the truth of oneness. And now I invite you to bring your awareness back into your body, back into the room where you are. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And welcome back.